Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy B-Dell. If you're new to this channel, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Today, we're going to be talking about how the Aquarian age, which is the golden age under the sun cycle, is the epitome of the veil being uplifted by breaking out the Kali Yuga cycle, the infinity loop under the energy of the moon, the sleep spell of King Gu, the 6,000-year curse that put a mental encryption over the minds of humans to where they can't see beyond the illusion of the third dimensional Piscean age of darkness. But now we in the age of the true light, to where when the sun reaches solar maximum, it has the ability to produce granulations and prominences that activates the sun heat genes to where you can tap into the quantum world in the higher dimensions to where you can see these Anunnaki, these Draconian reptilians, the Elohim, or these watchers. So this is why the World Economic Forum wants to stagnate spiritual evolution by way of a totalitarian agenda that's based on neurological manipulation, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you a few illustrations of what I'm talking about. Right? Because we living in a time right now, you can't just say stuff. You got to show people in real time what's going on, right? So when you're talking about the end of the Piscean age of darkness, right? That means that we're going into the sun cycle. The sun cycle is the epitome of, the Great Awakening period or the Aquarian age, to where you have the end of the beatification period of the Piscean age as we segue into 2024, 2025, and 2026, which is basically the end of the 6,480 years of probation time as being encapsulated inside of a prison planet, right? Meaning that it's the end of the spiritual cutoff. So this is where you have the inner dimensions start to lock in and work in tandem, and they all work in synergy, which creates a electromagnetic force field all around the planet to where you have the merging of the physical world and the material plane merging in at the same time, right? So this is going to be the inception point of the harmonic convergence, right? So what you're looking at right here, you got the age of Pisces, which was facilitated by the Iron Age that was acclimated to the Clay Age, right? Which was created by the foundation of mankind, because there's a diametrical difference between man and mankind. Mankind is a kind of a man that was genetically spliced. So we living in an artificial system, right, that was facilitated by artificial people that was created by Yakub. So now when you in the age of the Iron Age, right, under the age of Taurus, Aries, and Pisces, now we segue into the sun cycle, which is the Aquarian age, which is the golden age, right, where you have supreme spiritual consciousness and the return of the gods. And the return of the gods is the return of the Christ consciousness, right? To where you're in alignment with the Sirius star constellation, right? As we going into this this master plane, right? As we segue out of the darkness of deception. That's why you go to read Genesis chapter 5 and Revelation chapter 20, verse 6. It's all acclimated to this theological context, because what you got to understand is that the Bible is actually a Freemasonic playbook talking about the end of their system, and the end of their system is the end of the Iron Age under the age of Pisces, which is under the lunar cycle. Now we under the sun cycle, right? So we broke out of the infinity loop, because when you understand the sacred geometry, the geometrical shapes, right, under it's a form of witchcraft. This system is built on a form of witchcraft, because you got to understand that the moon is the embodiment of a square, which is a cube, which is a representation of spiritual entrapment. So a square is actually a force field around a circular beehive, which is a form of an object that propagates spiritual stagnation. So when you're talking about the Saturn Moon matrix, right? The Saturn Moon matrix is a accumulation of subatomic particles that are cube shaped that creates the holographic projection to where you trapped in this three-dimensional realm, right? Now we're going into the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, because the fifth and the fourth dimension is when you have the destruction of the old world. So now when you look at this graph right here, you can see the infinity loop, right? We break it out of the infinity loop because you have the solar transmission hitting the planet and it's activating the pole shift, which will be the precursor to the great solar flash. And if your body's not in alignment with the great solar flash, what happens is you're not going to be able to make it into the hereafter, right? So with that being said, we're in the golden age right now, to where no longer we're trapped. We're not entrapped by this cube, the cube of Saturn. We're not entrapped by the three-dimensional frequencies. We're not entrapped by, everything that basically subjugates our DNA to where our genetical disposition is not in alignment with right knowledge, right wisdom, and right understanding, right? So now, with that being said, you have interstellar vortex portals that's opening up to where we break out of the Kali Yuga cycle, right? We're breaking out of the Kali Yuga cycle. So this is the precursor to activating the mind, which is connected to the brain being a holographic computer, right? So it means that you're able to unplug from the simulation by way of the sun cycle. That's what this is all about. This is why the World Economic Forum, this is why, these plutocracies, these oligarchs, they want to stagnate the spiritual evolution by creating many different Hegelian dialectic principles to where you don't be in a state of evolution, because they're trying to hold on to the system, because the system is basically phased out, right? So the electromagnetic energy in a force field around the brain has an interstellar vortex portal to take you into a different space and time, right? So because we're in the sun cycle, when light breaks into a dimension, it reverses the polarity of time. So that means that you're not trapped by the infinity loop of time, right? Time is an artificial construct that was galvanized by the Iron Age, which is the age of darkness, the age of deception under the energy of the moon. And the moon is a representation of the cube of Saturn, Saturn moon matrix. You're breaking out of it from a mental standpoint, right? That's what this is all about. So when you break out of the Kali Yuga cycle, right, which we just did on January 15th of this year. So with that being said, we're going through an ascension process. Everything is going to an age of fulfillment, spiritual growth, where you have deeper connections through a harmonic convergence. When you're talking about the cultivation of the 144,000, right? It's not only subjected to biological upgrades and things of that nature. You have to have, the divine feminine and the divine masculine working in synergy like a machine in a factory. We got to come together. Because the unity consciousness is what manipulates the grid systems to where we're not spiritually entrapped into 3D. That's what this is all about. That's why they create all these diabolical plans, right? And create, many different things to where, they subjugate us on so many levels. So you have the closing of an age, you have the closing of a cycle. And when you close out of that cycle, right, this is the Kali Yuga. This is why when you look at the depiction of her, she's stepping on a man, because the man is a symbology of patriarchal energy under the age of deception that subjugated the energy of a matriarch, which is connected to a sun cycle, and the sun cycle is facilitated by nature. So this is why she had the heads of men all around her neck. It's the age of destruction. The Kali Yuga is basically dismantling the Metatronic overlay, right? The Metatronic overlay is the material plane, and the material plane is facilitated by illusions. It's facilitated by fallacies. It's facilitated by everything that goes against the natural order of cosmic law. So what happens is the matriarch has to take back the planet, because we all know that planet Earth is a feminine planet, and it was all facilitated by women at one point in time. But because of patriarchy, right, when the Draconian reptilian, they drugged the moon from planet Jupiter into our solar system, that's when the artificial construct of reality started to take place. So that's how you know that since the moon is not real, that means the material plane is not real, because it's all being galvanized by illusions. So now when you wake up and break out of the Kali Yuga cycle, right, with the activation of the holographic computer, which is your brain, right, when you break out of the simulation mentally, this is where you can see beyond the visible light spectrum of the three-dimensional world, right? So this is why we can only see 10% of the electromagnetic spectrum, because we was in the age of darkness. As I was saying, you was in the dark. When you go to Luke chapter 8, verse 13, what happens in the dark comes the light, right? So the age of darkness under the energy of the moon, Pisces, as we go into the sun cycle is the Aquarian age. When you're in the Aquarian age, that's when you see beyond the illusion. You see beyond the visible light spectrum of the three-dimensional world that was facilitated by the moon and Saturn. Saturn is Satan. So that's why when you go to Corinthians 4:4, they say that Satan is the God of this world, right? He's not the God of the universe, the God of this world. The God of this world, meaning that when you go to Genesis, right, when you're encapsulated inside of a fermented dome, that means that Genesis is basically talking about the creation of the simulation, not the creation of the world, because the creation of the simulation is where you was spiritually cut off to where you can't see beyond the visible light spectrum, as we're basically encased inside of a dome, because it's all based on false light. And what is the false light? The false light is the personification of Lucifer, right? So when you see beyond the visible light spectrum, because like I said, we are light bodies trapped inside of a light prism, which is a prison. We are in a prison planet, right? So we break out of the Kali Yuga cycle. It's the end of patriarchy, because patriarchy subjugates nature by way of capitalism, classism, racism. All this stuff was facilitated by the Piscean age, right? So when you have the wavelength of gamma radiation and ultraviolet light radiation, it basically dismantles the false light, right? Now, like I said, this is all connected to the energy and the frequency of the brain, because the brain and the mind works in tandem. The brain and the mind works in tandem with the energetic frequency of the soul, which is the heart chakra, because the heart is the seat of the soul. So your brain interprets the various energies of the visible light as different colors ranging from red to violet, right? Because violet is the personification of the hypothalamus gland, which is the master gland. We're going to get into that for a second. So now, since we're in the sun cycle, the Aquarian age, we're in the Great Awakening, right? When you have the UV radiation light spectrum, it basically activates the sun heat genes, which is a form of neuromelanin, which is activating the carbon. So that neuromelanin activates the dopamine, and the dopamine activates the serotonin levels, and the serotonin levels activates the hypothalamus gland, which is the master gland, the crown chakra, to where you see beyond the illusion of the three-dimensional Piscean age of darkness, right? So that's why it's all connected to our genetics. It's all connected to seeing beyond the illusion. That's what it's all about. You got to break out of the illusionary aspect. You got to break free from religion. Even though there's a little truth in religion, that's why sometimes I propagate religious context, because I know that's where their consciousness is still acclimated to monotheistic culture. So I got to show people in real time where we at by way of theological context. Sometimes I got to point out the scriptures. So, because sometimes you got to use the matrix in order to pull people out of it, right? So that's why I propagate the Bible sometimes, or the Holy Quran. So like I said, this UV radiation activates the neuromelanin. The neuromelanin activates dopamine. The dopamine activates the serotonin levels, which gives an activation to the hypothalamus gland, the master gland, the crown chakra. So that's when you have your endocrine system in alignment. When your endocrine system is in alignment, that activates the seven energy cortexes, which is your chakra system. When your chakra system is in alignment, you break out of the prism planet or prism, right? Because the soul is encapsulated inside of a meat suit, right? So like I said, you see beyond the soul trap mechanisms of the Saturn Moon matrix, right? So now you have the third eye chakra, which is connected to the hypothalamus gland and the pituitary gland, right? So that's why, genetics and spirituality, the celestial bodies, they all work in tandem. It's a tether connection to it. So like with that being said, like I said, your sexual functions, your energy levels, blood pressure, all this stuff has to be in alignment. So that's why they want to, subjugate us on a neurological level and at a biological level that's connected to their enterprises and their corporations. When you're talking about these hospitals and things of that nature, we're going to get into that. So I got to speak carefully. So like I said, the light source, the visible light spectrum, UV radiation, the cymatic frequencies of light hits the prism. We are the personification of a prism, right? Because this prism is the personification of the fact that we live in a three-dimensional world. The three-dimensional world is comprised of three different domains: people, places, and possessions, reading, writing, arithmetic, and things of that nature. ABCs, one, two, threes, everything, gases, liquid, solids, Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, uh, Brahma, Krishna, Shiva, all this stuff is acclimated to the three-dimensional world. So when you break out of that prism, right? When you look at the this triangle is the prism, which is the body, carbon body, right? So when you break out of it by way of higher consciousness, the light source, the activation, that's when you activate the rainbow spectrum of your energy cortexes, your chakra system, to where you see beyond the visible light spectrum to where it's no longer at 10%. Right? Because you have an emerging of dimensions. We in the Aquarian age, right? So, like I said, the prism is the embodiment. The Tesla anger radiation is the embodiment of the body, right? Because carbon is the building block of all civilization. So when you have ether merging in with the carbon, it starts to manipulate timelines, right? That's what this is all about. Because, like I said, spirituality and genetics work in tandem, right? Uh-oh, where's my videos? Okay. Now, when you're able to break out of the Piscean age of illusion, this is where you begin to see beyond the illusion. When you start to see beyond the illusion, things like this start to take place. You know what I'm saying? It's not only subjected to what took place over in Miami at the Bayside Mall, but like I said, you're going to see a lot of stuff like this lady's talking about, right? She's going to be talking about an experience that she had when she was at the grocery store. Because like I said, we have the quantum world merging in with the material plane, the fourth and the fifth dimension merging in with the third dimension, to where you're going to start to see entities. You're going to see these watchers. You're going to see draconian reptilians. You're going to see a lot of different things that they told us that was acclimated to conspiracy. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be a conspiracy no more, right? This is why women like this is having experiences. I'm going to play the video.
Listen up, y'all. There are beings that is walking this earth and they are not human. I just came from Kroger's. I just got off of work. I went to go pick up a few items, y'all. I go to the bread aisle. Now, the bread aisle is super long. I'm at one end of the bread aisle. There's a guy that's about 3/4 of the way down in the bread aisle. He got a cart. I got a cart. He's looking at me. And you know how you can see out your peripheral that somebody's staring at you. He ain't just looking, but he's staring at me. I kind of look his way. He's still staring. I go ahead and I get my bread. I go back around the other way because I'm going to the international aisle to get some pasta and some other stuff. While I'm in the international aisle at one end, this guy comes around and he's at the top of the same aisle. I see him still looking at me. Now, mind you, there's a couple of things that I need to get out of that aisle. So the first part of the aisle, I grab what I need to grab and I go about midways down. He's at the other end. So he's staring at me still. So I kind of look at him and I go like, how you give somebody that type look? He's still staring. So I'm looking for what I'm looking for. I can't really find it because he's throwing me off because he keeps staring. Mind you, this man don't have nothing in his cart. He's not even turned to look at any food. He's looking directly at me. By this time, I'm like, you know what? I'm not on it. I'm about to just stare you down. So I turn to look at him. Y'all, when I tell you, this man stared at me and his eyes turned black. Everything in his whole eyeball, not just the pupil, but the white part, turned completely black. He looked, it said black, and then he walked away. When I tell you I left that cart sitting in that aisle, I didn't even buy nothing from Kroger's. I left out and I came home. There is stuff, there is beings that is walking in this earth, and they at the store, they at whatever, they look like us and everything else, but they are not human. I don't even know what to say. Listen up.
So with that being said, like I said, we have the quantum world merging in with the material plane. So you're going to start to see a lot of these things. And I believe her. You know what I'm saying? Her name is Sherry. You can see it at the bottom. Ain't nobody named Sherry finna be lying about no shit like that. Auntie Sherry ain't finna be lying. So, like I said, the truth has an energetic frequency to it. You can tell when somebody's lying. And with that being said, like I said, ain't no woman named Sherry gonna be lying about no shit like that. So I don't really think she's cloud chasing. I really believe that, she had that experience, right? So now, when you have the merging in dimensions, right? So this, what you gotta understand is that the book of Enoch, right? That book was taken out of the Bible, right? Because it's talking about the watchers. These watchers are Elohim, Anunnaki, or, whatever you want to call them, extraterrestrial beings, angels, whatever, or the seraphim. What you got to understand is that Thomas Arundel in 1408, he was appointed by the dark priesthood of the Vatican Church to take the book of Enoch out of the Bible, which is actually the inception point of the Bible. And then that's when he compromised the book of Genesis, right? And turned it into a patriarchal standpoint that actually goes against the energy and the frequency of nature under a matriarchal order, right? Because you got to understand that, the church and the state is not separate. They all work in tandem through ecclesiastical law, which creates the corporate infrastructure of patriarchy through religion, the manipulation of religion, right? So what you got to understand is that, because of patriarchy, and that we're in a sun cycle, you're going to start to see these watchers just like that lady. I don't know if it was a draconian, whatever, but it's many different watchers. It's just a different nomenclature title for a draconian, or it can be an archon, or it can be agreeable Anunnaki or disagreeable Anunnaki, right? Watchers is just basically a holistic term that's acclimated to the doctrine of whatever religion or whatever spiritual system that you follow. So the book of Enoch is talking about the watchers. That's why they took it out of the Bible, because they know during this time period, these watchers, we're going to be able to see them. So now, what you got to understand is, now we out of the sleep spell of King Gu. The sleep spell of King Gu is actually acclimated to the energy of the moon, right? We are no longer in the three-dimensional frequency, right? Because now this is where you tap into the Akashic records, which is the personification of the scroll of all. The scroll of all is the tablets of destiny. The 7 tablets of destiny is your chakra system. Your chakra system is going to activate the epigenetics. The epigenetics is where you remember certain things that took place on the planet that's far beyond the limitations of the three-dimensional realm. Because I told you, the three-dimensional world, there's no evolution for it. Because everything, as far as the three-dimensional world, it operates in threes, right? So you got, like I said, people, places, and possessions, the 3 little bears, 3 little pigs, reading, writing, arithmetic, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. You got God, devil, humanity, home, job, money in the bank, religion, media, and school. All these things is basically the three-dimensional frequency, right? Meaning that there's limitations, right? There's no evolution. That's why we got to go through a reset, because you can't evolve in the third dimension. You can only reset. It goes from regeneration to degeneration, and then goes all the way back to regeneration. It has to go through a zero. It has to zero out. It has to go through a process of 0-point energy. So the reason I tell you that is because these watchers, they always come in threes, all the time. These watchers, they always come in threes. Why? Is because one is supposed to get your spiritual, get you aligned spiritually. The other one's supposed to get you aligned mentally, and the other one's supposed to get you aligned physically, right? Because I told you on Brother Rich's channel, I had an experience, right? I had an experience with these with 3 beings that was in my room, and I'm gonna break it down another time, but I had an experience about that. I really don't want to talk about it because I don't want to hear nobody talking about, oh, he's capped. So these 3 beings, or the watchers, they always work in on a trilateral connection of threes. That's why when you go to the book of Enoch, it tells you that the 3 Anunnaki visited Abraham. So these beings, they not only subjected to a physical state, they can also not take corporeal form to where they're in the ethereal state, to meaning that they have a shadowy side, right? That's why, just like in the Bayside Mall, they said they seen 3 shadowy beings, 3 tall, dark figures, right? So just because they at an etheric state doesn't mean that they don't have a physical state, right? They're able to shapeshift. So that's why when you go to Dr. York's publication, he talks about the Etherians. The Etherians is basically, you shapeshifting into a form of a gas, a spirit, and then you can take physical form. So you have an Etherian and a Riskian is basically the same thing, right? That means that you just merging in dimensions. You're working through dimensions. So this is why when you look at this right here, the Ancient Aliens, it talks about how those 3 shadowy figures, they always come in 3s, just like I had the 3 beings in my room and everything. And it did. My experience wasn't nothing malevolent. It wasn't disagreeable. I felt like it was something agreeable. I felt comfortable. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't nothing to where I felt like they was, going to castigate me on a spiritual level, right? So like I said, they always come in 3s because they come in 3s because that's all connected to the ancient order of the spirit of Melchizedek. Because a lot of times when it talks about in the book of Enoch, he got his edification from these 3 Anunnaki when they came to visit him. That's why, it's based on spiritual alignment and spiritual evolution. That's why every time when you see these 3 beings or whatever, you get an activation on a mental level, spiritual level, and a physical level, right? So it talks about the non-ether etheric beings, which is also the personification of the Watchers, right? So like I said, they come down, and like I said, they come down for spiritual evolution, but you'll also have disagreeable ones too. So that's why I'm saying we have the merging in dimensions. You're going to start to see shadowy beings, just like you've seen at the mall. You're going to start to see entities like that woman scene, right? Whether it's agreeable or disagreeable. Because we living in a time right now, you know what I'm saying? They all put it in the movies. This is in a Marvel movie. They always come in 3s because they supposed to raise up the vibration of the 3-dimensional world to where you see beyond the 3rd-dimensional Piscean age of darkness. That's why when you go to this right here, you got to watch this by Dr. Delbert Blair. He talks about when he was at a UFO conference in his video, he said after the UFO conference, 3 beings from a different star system, 3 extraterrestrials, humanoid, came and talked to him. I mean, I don't think he's cloud chasing or whatever because, his work speaks for itself. He's a legend. So like I said, man, he's a legend. So I always show credence and veneration to the people who's doing the real work, right? Even tells you in the book of Ezekiel, it tells you about the Watchers, right? To where it activates a form of righteousness. Because the Watchers are actually here to warn you for what is to come, right? In Ezekiel 33:2 and then Ezekiel 33:3, because like I said, it tells you about the watchman. The watchman is basically personification of the trumpet, the sound of the horn, to warn the people. Notice you see 333 at the top. That's spiritual alignment. Because like I said, they all work in synergies of 3. So I just had that download just now. So I didn't put that there, on purpose. Everything to where you ascend out of the 3-dimensional state, they come in 3s. A lot of you had these experience. If you had an experience, put it in the comments and put it in the chat or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Because people are trying to get clarity about what's going on. You have the merging of dimensions. You have the merging of the spiritual world, the quantum world, and the physical world at the same time. So you're going to start to see things that you thought was acclimated to conspiracy is no longer going to be a conspiracy because the veil is being uplifted, right? So this is where we get into I'm gonna play this one first. So like I said, you're going to see a lot of things. This is a whistleblower. He actually was a KGB member. He was also a CIA agent, and he's talking about all these alliances of draconian factions and different extraterrestrial species. So the truth is going to come out even more as we go into the sun cycle, because they got to tell us the truth. They got to tell us the truth, because when you see a Draconian walking down the street, you see three beings, shadow figures, you know what I'm saying? They got to explain that. So they gotta put all the truth out in the forefront to where certain things happen. You know, it's no longer to where it's basically not a conspiracy no more.
From Chief of Operations to all governments, militaries, and citizens of Earth. Subject: reconnaissance mission over the Orion Group bases in Antarctica, the Moon, and Mars. Part 2.
Notice he said the Orion factions in Antarctica. All right, now I gotta pause this video, because remember, those three beings or whatever, they went through an interstellar vortex portal in Antarctica, from Antarctica, and came to Miami. Because all this works in tandem. All this is tether connected. Everything is connected. When the further that you get into this spirituality, the further that you get into higher states of consciousness, you're gonna understand that everything is connected. I'm gonna play the video.
With the Miami Mall incident, it was said that there was a portal that was opened in the mall, that people had seen it. You can see it here on the screen, and that obviously this is where the aliens had come out of. I had just found this tweet here today that says, Miami aliens incident, Antarctic base. They put the coordinates in backwards. Please try it and write where it takes you. So when you open up a portal, you have to have coordinates of where you want to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to go onto Google Earth here today, and we're going to look up the Bayside Marketplace. I'm already on it here, but I'm going to type it in again here for you guys, so you can see that this is where it takes us, the Bayside Marketplace on the screen here. All right, so I'm going to right click on the coordinates here. We're going to copy this. Then we're going to paste it over here. So what we're going to do right here, it says north and west. So we've got 25, 46, 42. So on the girl's tweet here, right here. So here's the tweet in the comments here. It says 25, 46, 42 west. So we're going to change that from north to west. And we've got 80, 11, 12 west. And we're going to change it. And she's got 80, 11, 12 south. So let's change the west to south. We're going to hit enter. And now it's going to take us, look, you can already see it's taking us to the bottom here. So we're going to zoom out. Oh, Lordy Lord, look at this. Look at that. This is the Antarctic Circle here in the south. How can we confirm that we're in the south here? Because if we take a look here, here's Argentina over here. Here we've got Africa over here. And here we have actually New Zealand. So this is in the south here. So it seems like Gary did a bad job. He did a bad job in putting the wrong coordinates. Let me know what you think. And
so like I said, it's all connected to Antarctica, because when you put in these coordinates, it's an interstellar vortex portal, right? An interstellar vortex portal. So all portals have coordinates, and those coordinates are basically to where you can merge in the physical world and the quantum world at the same time, to where you can manipulate time dilation.
From Chief of Operations to all governments, militaries, and citizens of Earth. Subject: reconnaissance mission over the Orion Group bases in Antarctica, the Moon, and Mars. Part 2. This is an official SSP Alliance release. The disclosures we have brought forward have been compromised. Fake secret space program veterans, super soldier imposters, and ET contactees have released considerable misinformation. To keep humanity from fighting for freedom with a false sense of security, they are peddling the narrative that the Mars colonies, Moon, and Antarctica bases have been liberated from the gray alien and reptilian forces. To combat these counterintelligence campaigns, we are releasing a series of briefings, straight from our highest-ranking officers, without intermediaries. We strongly recommend that you disregard information that is not coming directly from us. In our last briefing, we presented crucial background intel. We started debriefing on the reconnaissance mission over the Orion Group bases in Antarctica, the Moon, and Mars by Corey Goode, the Ansher, and the Mayans. The Orion Group includes the reptilians, tall greys, insectoids, various conquered ETs, and numerous rogue Federations groups, including a tall, attractive Nordic race that seduces and deceives humans under the control of the AI god. We describe...
They are basically, when he's talking about the Pleiadian faction, he's actually talking about Ashtar Command. Ashtar Command works in tandem with the Nazi regime that is created by a totalitarian agenda to subjugate humanity under a crypto control system, which is a technocrat system. So it's basically a form of cyber dictatorship. So as we segue into the golden age, they're going to try to implement this new world order system. And that new world order system is going to be facilitated by the Orion group, which is comprised of your Draconian reptilian, right? Your tall grays and insectoids, or Ashtar Command, right? So that is basically the rogue federations that is connected to the Nordic race. So that's why everything that's facilitated by the Saturn Moon Matrix is based on a Lush energy. That Lush energy is based on the extraction of neurons from the body by way of technological devices, right? So that's because artificial intelligence, or technology, that is basically the third eye for the beast in the Babylonian system. I'm gonna play the video.
At the reptilian bases, and how reptilians collect loosh for consumption and survival of their AI god, utilizing advanced technology. Wood talked in detail about Antarctica for the first time in July 2016. He revealed the Cabal underground bases in Brazil and Argentina send supplies through tectonic rift systems connecting Antarctica, South America, Central America, and North America. During the reconnaissance mission, Good saw the ICC digging up the pre-Adamite ruins. While flying over the ice harbor, the reconnaissance delegation observed giant submarines, designed to carry cargo containers, traveling through the tectonic rifts using electromagnetic sub-engines. David Wilcock confirmed this intel through his insiders, Bruce and Pete Peterson. Good also explained that the reptilians told the Third Reich Germans about the old pre-Adamite bases, which they then cleared out and utilized to build modern infrastructure. The Third Reich Germans, and later the ICC, built Antarctica bases inside underground lava tubes, ensuring comfortable ambient temperatures for humans. They also made bases on the surface, under ice domes, formed by the geothermal heat from volcanic activity and giant geysers, which melted ground layers under the ice. When viewing the deep underground reptilian city in Antarctica, the reconnaissance mission delegation observed millions of reptilians in a city carved out of caverns. Reptilians, biodroids, and humans were seen actively and jointly working on high-tech equipment and devices in a section of the city. Further down the cavern, they observed the area inhabited by other reptilian society castes. The look of this area was Spartan and low-tech. It looked like an old Celtic castle with a red, black, purple, and maroon tapestries hanging over large doorways, and statues placed in passageways. Walls were adorned with death-themed art, which looked like it was painted or tattooed on the skin, from the torsos of humans and other beings that crossed paths with the Draco soldiers. Good was told that each gruesome piece of art told the story of a battle or conflict. The statues were made of a plaster mixture, partially covering mummified bodies of reptilians, ancient humans, and what appeared to be pre-Adamites. Nika explained to Corey that these art pieces were commissioned at different times in our history to celebrate victories over other castes, the pre-Adamites, and humans going back over 50,000 years. The statues were mummified leaders of reptilian enemies. Reptilians created the most recent statues around 11,800 years ago, after the last solar event. Nika stated that his people had discovered similar facilities on their planet.
Notice he said after the last solar event, so the same thing has actually take place. So that means that, like I said, the bifurcation period under the lunar cycle, that's when the Draconian reptilians 12,000 years ago drug the planet, they drug the moon, the artificial celestial megastructure, from planet Jupiter into our solar system, right? So that's what, that's how they created everything, the whole infrastructure. So the last solar event happened, 16,000 years ago. And now we're in that age again.
Liberation. Pre-Adamites are originally from the super-Earth planet named Maldak. Due to the misuse of ancient technology in a war they instigated, which destroyed Maldak and the atmosphere of its moon Mars, two political factions of the pre-Adamites elite were forced to leave their home planet. The survivors were elites royals who took their last 3 motherships and escaped to the moon and an already established colony in Antarctica, which they had already maintained for thousands of years. The current asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is the remnant of the destroyed planet Maldak. Following a pit stop on the moon, their 3 motherships ultimately crashed in a temperate region on prehistoric Earth, inspiring our modern-day fallen angel myths. By cannibalizing their ships, the pre-Adamites made themselves at home and built the most advanced city in our world, Atlantis. The pre-Adamites also experimented with combining pre-Adamite and early human DNA to create hybrids, chimera, and gigantic humanoids. Their focus on these experiments, rather than spiritual evolution, prevented them from transitioning to a new, higher consciousness level. The seismic earth changes resulting from a solar cataclysm triggered an end times madness in unprepared pre-Adamites, who mentally self-destructed as they fought each other. A massive tidal wave sank and flash frozen their Atlantean kingdom, which remains buried in Antarctica. The command and control area of the reptilian base is where they coordinate activities with extraterrestrial allies, ships, and various projects and missions. Good and the reconnaissance delegation witnessed a quick high-tech coordinating Zoom call among the reptilians, insectoids, and tall grays. Before the Zoom call communication started, the delegation saw a black triangle with a circle and a bent light beam floating in a holographic field. Only a particular reptilian caste is allowed access to this advanced technology. Due to the high probability of being discovered by the Royal White Reptilians, the reconnaissance delegation shifted their observation to other areas. The delegation viewed one of the less technical areas of the reptilian city and found hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of reptilians in a hibernation state. They were a different caste of reptilians, shorter and less muscular, but had larger heads like the pre-Adamites. Good was told these beings could enter a deep hibernation while leaving their bodies in astral projection as very tall shadow figures. Hibernating and atrophied reptilians are stuck in the loosh factory, like heroin addicts. They are vulnerable and dependent on our civilization's negative energy for their continued existence. Each reptilian shadow figure had between 3 and 8 shadow beings, believed to be extra-dimensional, which assume
See, that's in connection to that what happened in Miami. They, like I said, they can be in a reptilian form, or they can not take corporeal form and be in a form of ether. So, like I said, you have Etherians, which is the Anunnaki, right? They can take form as, etheric form. A Draconian can basically take an etheric form. They have the ability, both of them have the ability to do that.
Human shape. The reptilian shadow figures could project themselves into human military facilities, workplaces, homes, and even dreams, while controlling the shadow and elemental beings and demons. The primary purpose of the shadow and elemental beings and demons is to collect loosh by affecting the people's vibration and state of consciousness through influencing people in their family and social circles, either through direct control or possession. The demons were visible to the reptilians, who would attach to certain humans or groups and follow reptilian orders to create chaos, sickness, mental distress, and death in their targets. Good has described a group of reptilians from a witch doctor class, wearing cloaks and performing black magic ceremonies among the hibernating reptilians. In some cases, they were sacrificing humans, while watching holographic projections of other humans on the surface, executing a mirrored human sacrificing ritual. The sacrifices occurred simultaneously, opening a portal between the 2 locations. Like in some satanic ritual testimonies revealed throughout history, the cloaked witch doctor reptilians would walk through this portal and physically appear before the humans, who dropped immediately to their knees in worship. Because of these activities, this city was infested with mid to high level demons and negative polarity elementals. Each reptilian base had a dedicated prison-like area for human refugees and those imprisoned for consumption and sacrifices. Some humans were the former Dark Fleet operators, one of the secretive SSP factions that works mainly outside the solar system. These Dark Fleet operators had to flee the programs after Sigmund, a deceased double SSP agent, exposed their program. They were now refugees in these bases and assisted the reptilians as manual laborers, taking care of prisoners who were to be sacrificed or as food resources. In May 2018, Good released intel on human trafficking and the slavery business being a...
So that's how you know it's all connection to the last video I put out when it was talking about, the end of the de facto corporation of the deep state shadow government, which is the shadow government, right? So that shadow government works in tandem with the Canaanite Babylonian system for human trafficking, because they got to give a sacrifice to the Draconian, right?
Significant motivation for humanity's war against reptilian oppression. Humans have been the object of this galactic slave trade for far too long that the next big push in the battle of good versus evil would be the war on all forms of slavery and human trafficking. While good observed some off-planet human slaves rescued and liberated, many humans continue to be enslaved, while the off-planet galactic slave trade continues. The reconnaissance delegation also observed human-looking bio-androids at the reptilian base. Ansher and Mika explained that these biomachines were millions of years old and were built in the image of the civilization that designed them. These bioandroids were highly adept at designing and building technology. After the AI God sent itself as a waveform artificial intelligence signal across multiple galaxies, it took over their solar system, infected the bioandroids, and used their technology against them, wiping out their entire civilization. The bioandroids became AI avatars, allowing the AI God to create technologies that the reptilians could not. Additionally, the reconnaissance delegation observed hundreds of 8-foot-tall human-looking beings. They were very muscular and had 6 fingers on each hand. The AI defeated their race with the reptilians, infecting them with nanites, and assuming total mind control of their race, which succumbed to the service of the AI God. The process wiped out almost all of their soul group characteristics. The 8-foot-tall human-looking beings had spacecraft they operated alongside the Draco, a humanoid reptilian race originally from the Draco star cluster, who abduct and experiment on humans for the reptilians, in a program shared by a few ET groups. At this point in their reconnaissance mission, one of the witch doctor reptilians detected the delegation, who subsequently moved to the ICC location in Antarctica. Worldwide corporations rule the ICC, or the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, with representatives in a super corporate board, which controls the outer space SSP infrastructure. Additionally, the ICC controls former Dark Fleet facilities, which were active and working closely with their counterparts in 3 different bases on the Moon. We will cover what was observed on the ICC bases in future briefings. In the next briefing, we will describe the reconnaissance mission delegation's observations of the tall gray bases. Be patient, be strong. We are in this together.
So like I said, that's a whistleblower that used to work for the CIA, and he was a KGB member, right? So now, all that stuff is happening because you're at the end of a system. It's the end of the Saturn time cube simulation, the Saturn moon matrix, the artificial time analysis mechanism, right? So like I said, they want to stagnate spiritual evolution for a totalitarian agenda that's based on neurological manipulation, right? And that neurological manipulation is connected to this, right? The so-called, you know what, I call it the draconian juice. So this is why the World Economic Forum wants to propagate this, right? Holding simulations for it. But that's why when you're talking about the attack on God, because like I said, they know that God is the highest extension of the mind, which uses the elements of matter to express itself. So God is the energetic frequency of the mind that works in tandem with the heart chakra, because the heart is the seat of the soul. So when you're balanced on a energetic level, that is the precursor to alignment, right? So this is why they create many different things that attacks the brain. They attack the brain because the brain is acclimated to the holographic projection of the Saturn moon matrix, right? They want to use another way to pull you right back to their system. So that's why this right here is actually the personification of the Sears disease, which is severe intravirus epidemic respiratory syndrome, because that intravirus in the Sears is a direct emulation of the cube of Saturn, the hexahedron. So the same thing that you see inside on top of the cube of Saturn is actually acclimated to the intravirus when you're talking about the you know what, I gotta, because I ain't trying to get hit with no copy, no strikes or nothing like that. So like I said, this is all acclimated to the brain function, because like I said, that intravirus puts an encryption over the minds of humans, right? And like I said, this is actually called the Sears disease, because like I said, it's severe intravirus epidemic respiratory syndrome. That intravirus is a direct emulation to keep you spiritually entrapped in the form of a cube. You got to break out of the cube. You got to break out of the mind simulation, right? So that's why when you go to Dr. York's publication, he is talking about how in the sun cycle, you're going to have a lot of people become prophets and messengers and seers, because that introvirus that they're going to try to put inside people is going to put a mental encryption. It's going to connect you right back into the infinity loop, right? To where you can't see beyond the illusion, to where you won't be able to see these entities like that woman was doing, because they know that we live in a time right now where the quantum world is merging in with the physical plane, the material plane. So, like I said, the only way you can hide that we were going through a metamorphic shift on the planet, you got to create a Hegelian dialectic principle that's based on this from the World Economic Forum. So, like I said, they try to stagnate your spiritual evolution with these all these false flags. That's why they got to attack your genetics, because when you're in the sun cycle, right, that activates the sun heat genes, prominences, granulations, right? Those gases are basically forms of ether that's been facilitated by coronal mass ejections. You get a biological upgrade, you get a neurological upgrade to where you can see beyond the illusion. That's what they doing all this stuff for, right? It's spiritual entrapment. So it's not a coincidence that the antivirus, like I said, looks just like the cube of Saturn, the hexahedron, right? Not a coincidence. Because they know as we in the sun cycle, the veil being uplifted, you know what I'm saying? What happens in the dark comes to light. Luke chapter 8, verse 17, right? So for those coming in, I'm going to give a rundown of what's going on. You can play the video back. Get this video out there because, we living at a time right now, a lot of stuff is going to be taking place. Now, you got to understand, we breaking out of the 6,480 year probation, meaning that we're no longer acclimated to having a capped consciousness because we in the sun cycle. So that means that the spiritual cutoff is not acclimated to the Piscean age. So now you have an emerging in dimensions in the electromagnetic ring of the merging of the third dimension, the fourth dimension, and the fifth dimension, which is why you see the infinity loop, which is breaking out of the Kali Yuga cycle. You see the Iron Age was facilitated by Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. We're no longer in the Piscean age because now we're in the age of Aquarius that is facilitated by the sun. The sun is basically the personification of return of spiritual consciousness, the return of the gods, and the return of the Christ consciousness, right? So now we in the Aquarian age, to where you're no longer encased inside of the Metatronic overlay of the cube of Saturn, because the cube is the representation of the material plane, which is connected to the energy of the moon. So you're no longer encased inside of a prison planet by way of the frequency of the mind. So your genetics and your DNA structure is not going to be manipulated by the system because we're in the sun cycle. So that activates the hypothalamus gland and the pituitary gland, which breaks out of the holographic computer of the simulation that's connected to your brain functions, which is acclimated to the energetic grid system. So when you break out of this three-dimensional state, that activates the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus gland, which are basically the master glands that activates the crown chakra, where you have the ultraviolet light that merges in with the cymatic frequencies of ether that puts the seven energy cortexes in alignment, which is the personification of the scrolls of all, and the scroll of all is the 7 tablets of destiny. The 7 tablets of destiny is your chakra system that activates the epigenetics. Your epigenetics is connected to your Akashic records, right? All this is happening because you're breaking out of the Kali Yuga cycle. The Kali Yuga cycle was facilitated by patriarchy. So that's why you see her with the heads of men. She's killing all the men because the men is a representation of patriarchy, right? So now, when you break out of the Kali Yuga cycle, you see beyond the visible light spectrum of the third dimensional energy, under the energy of the moon. Because like I said, this is why you can only see 10% of the electromagnetic spectrum, because you've been spiritually cut off because of patriarchy, under the energy of the moon. Because we are light bodies trapped inside of a light prism, which is a prison planet. So the brain is actually acclimated to a form of spirituality because you have to activate the endocrine system to activate your chakra system. And that's going to happen due to the UV radiation light spectrum merging in with the neuromelanin that produces dopamine. And that dopamine is going to produce serotonin levels that activate the crown chakra to where you can see beyond the illusion, right? See beyond the Luciferian agenda. So this is why, like I said, you're going to be able to see beyond everything. You're going to see beyond the deception, right? So you have the dispersion of light, the source, the energy, right, is going to activate the prism. The prism, when you see that triangle, that is the personification of a tetrahedron energy that's connected to the carbon body, because carbon is the building block of all civilization. So everything on planet Earth has carbon in it, right? So with that being said, the prism, right, which is the body, we are light bodies trapped inside of a light prism. So you have that light body, your soul encased inside of a physical vessel. So when you break out of that Kali Yuga cycle, that's when you activate the dispersions of lights and the components of colors that's connected to the energy cortexes of your chakra system, to where it activates the spiritual eye, which is connected to your hypothalamus gland, the master gland, right? So this is what it's about. You breaking out of the illusion. You're unplugging from the matrix by way of the sun cycle. The sun is giving off cymatic frequencies and fractions of light. So when you're able to see beyond the illusion, that's when you'll start to see watchers. That's when you'll start to see beyond people, places, and possessions. You'll be able to see beyond your home, your job, money in the bank. You see beyond reading, writing, arithmetic, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. All these are three-dimensional constructs. That is the sleep spell. The three-dimensional construct is a sleep spell of Kingu, facilitated by religion, facilitated by your job, facilitated by people, facilitated by anything that's connected to the material plane that keeps you connected on an emotional level, because your emotions is going to deceive you every time, right? Energy and motion connected to the moon. That's why they say don't go into the white light, because when you go into the white light, that holographic projection is a fallacy. It's an illusion, right? So when you're able to activate the spiritual eye, you'll be able to see these entities, these watchers, right? So that's what's taking place, you know? That's what's taking place. So, ladies and gentlemen, hold on for a second. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, we're living in a time right now. You have to have a supreme spiritual eye. You got to be grounded mentally. You got to be grounded physically. You got to be grounded spiritually, to where you can activate that Christ consciousness. That's what it's all about. It's activating the spiritual eye to see beyond the illusion. So that's why the World Economic Forum want to facilitate a totalitarian agenda that's based on mind manipulation. Because when you attack the mind, you're attacking God. Because we're multidimensional beings. So when you activate the spiritual eye, you can you can tap into the quantum world. You can see entities and things of that nature, right? Some people are able to do it, when the planet was in a three-dimensional state, but now it's going to be one of those things where people are going to have a lot more experiences talking about, oh, I seen a ghost, or I seen a draconian, or I seen a zeta reticular gray, or I seen a shadowy being. You're going to have a lot more of these encounters because, like I said, that is basically your personification of a fifth dimensional civilization, the merging of the physical world with the spiritual world, new heaven, new earth. That's what this is all about, right? Because the highest form of technology is spiritual energy. It's not facilitated by things that's propagated by mankind, which is based on a cybernetic dictatorship by way of a technocracy. It's, what I'm saying? Real spirituality is connected to the spiritual body, which is the highest form of technology. That's why, through the doctrine of signatures, everything is connected to their technological devices, is acclimated to who we are genetically, right? Because the spiritual body is the highest form of technology, not that motherfucking, man-made AI shit. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, in order to activate, your scroll of all, the 7 tablets of destiny within you, to activate the Akashic records, right? Because this is important, because the Kali Yuga cycle was all under deception. Everything that was, the great majority of stuff that was in the books, as far as like monotheistic context of religion or whatever, all that stuff was based on fallacies. Historical context was all based on a fallacy. We live in an inverted system. It's a Luciferian system. It goes against the natural law, right? Because it's based on the law of polarity. Because when you invert things, that creates polarity, and that polarity is connected to capitalism, because that creates a form of of how they supplicate your emotions and they transmute it into a weakness. So much to the point where they can have some type of, they can, create incentives that's connected to their system. They can extract that energy from you, right? They can extract, all the money, everything that's basically diabolical to the corporate system. They're able to do that. That's what this is all about. Everything is an energetic warfare. It's a frequency warfare, right? So that's why you got to get your frequency up. Because as the planet is going through a metamorphic shift, these new energies is coming in. They're going to be very chaotic to the body. So you got to you got to work out, go to the gym, run laps or whatever, eat healthy, get massages, get the endocrine system in alignment, fast, sit in the sauna, do something that's going to get your body ready for this great awakening period. Because now we have Pluto in Aquarius, right? And there's going to be a lot of things that's going to be taking place, and a lot of people are not ready for it mentally, physically, and spiritually. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, end of transmission.
10:14. We will put an end to this madness.
It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. Karma's gonna get to you, and then you'll have a chariot with only one less friend. Now I had distant folks that are looking to my eyes to understand the wisdom he's given and his wealth from the skies. So thanks for this meal that I'm about to receive, and thank you for my health and all the good memories. Thanks for the courage taking on another day when I used to not believe, but now I know about grace. Stay away from the fire, cause the flames does burn. Go with your gut feeling, when it's wrong you learn. For every one step I take, the Lord takes two. And do unto others if you want it done unto you. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. This a completion, the selfish Proto-Grecian, Amerindian, Phoenician. I'm the last of the Mohicans, the bastard of the land, the pen, melanin, accretion. And we just trying to get back to the fact that we was kings and queens of a land before the avalanche seized it. I live on Turtle Island with the rest of the diseased. Better than the medicine for 7 different treatments. Niggas try to ride away but end up getting seasick. The sleep can feel my words like Braille, and they're awakened with the penmanship of Hindu script written in them vacant monastery honor. Honorary payments to the prototype. Tomorrow's only a day away, but nothing happens overnight. The fuck's wrong with going left when you know it's right? Biting off more than I can chew, that's an overbite. Black on black crime is like watching 2 soldiers fight when all along they was on the same page. History. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land.